my client, who was 22 years old, made a decision that a lot of 40-year-olds that I talk to have a very hard time grasping. And that is that a little bit of sacrifice today will lead to a whole lot of freedom in the future. What kind of sacrifice? She made a decision to sacrifice $200 a month, which, if you remember being 22, that is a whole lot of money for a 22-year-old. Anyway, she's taking her $200 every single month and putting it into a cash value life insurance. Because she's doing that now and sacrificing that $200 right now, when she is 65, she will be getting paid $25,000 every single year because of this tiny sacrifice that she's doing right now. I'm going to walk you through exactly how I made this happen with her. But if this is the first time that we are meeting, my name is Nobu Musakiwa. I was able to quit my corporate job in my 30s and also pay off my house by asking real estate professionals very specific questions so I could be intentional about how I spent my money. And now, as a licensed financial professional in the insurance industry, I'm here to answer your questions so you can make strategic decisions around cash value life insurance so you have other income options besides your 9 to 5. One of the biggest problems that we all have right now is this desire to have results right now, as soon as possible. And it's hard to think about how something that you do today is going to impact you years down the line. But mastering that art of delayed gratification is so important when you're thinking about investing and thinking about your future, because a lot of things that are going to be impactful for you in the next 10, 15, 20 years are not going to seem so in the very moment. For this particular client, the cash value insurance that she put her funds into is an index universal life policy. If you aren't familiar with an index universal life policy, the way that it works is you elect how much you want to pay into it each month. And based on that, part of your funds go towards paying for your life insurance. And anything above and beyond that life insurance goes into a savings bucket where you are credited interest based on how well the stock market is doing. But when the stock market crashes, you don't get a negative return, essentially. The very first thing that we talked about is a budget. And for a lot of people, they just get stuck in this particular place and decide that an IUL is not for them. People will say, I don't have money for this, but then you'll see them spending on like going out for drinks the very next weekend and spending $50 or $100, or buying shoes the very next week, which are another $150, going on a trip, which is another, $500 or $1,000. And so for a lot of people, realistically, there is space in your budget if you really want to make it. So what we looked at is what the best case scenario would be, what a comfortable scenario would be, and what the worst case scenario would be. And based on those numbers, we don't want to look at, the best case scenario, because that is, if I could put in the most amount of money, here's what I would put in. Because that number that you pick as how much you're paying every month is going to determine the cost of your insurance. And so for her, even though $400 is something that was doable, we didn't pick that $400 because that would be stretching her budget all the way to the end. And I want to make sure that you're able to eat every day. So we went with $200, which was something that was comfortable for her, but she also has the flexibility to go all the way down to $40 if she needs to. But the plan is to stick to that $200 as much as possible. And then as she gets older, she has a little bit more leeway to put more in. And because this is an index universal life policy, she always has a flexibility to adjust this over time if needed. The next thing that we talk through in order to figure out what the best way to structure this IUL is her responsibilities. So for her, she is 22. She does not have any dependents. She has no kids. Both her parents are working adults. They don't rely on her for funds. She doesn't have any property. She doesn't have any businesses. And so for her, it wasn't essential for her to have a large life insurance policy. Because of that, I structured the index universal life policy so that it is increasing. What that means is that we looked at, based on this $200, what is the absolute minimum amount of insurance that she can get right now? And then every year that insurance is going to be going up based on how much is in that savings bucket. And what that gives an opportunity for is an opportunity for her funds to grow as much as possible, because we are finding the absolute minimal amount of insurance that is possible for her. So because she is so young and because she doesn't have a lot of responsibilities, that makes sense for her. Now, just because an increasing policy works for her doesn't mean that it's the right plan for you, even if you are 22. I want to stress that this is based on her specific situation and her specific goals. It doesn't mean that a level policy would be bad for her. It's just based on what she wants and how her life is set up, this was the best thing for her. So don't take this away and say the person I'm working with did not make it increasing, it's a bad policy. Absolutely not. Increasing and level are both fine. It just depends on what your end goal is and what is going on in your life. To solidify, to make sure that this index universal life policy was set up the best way for her, we also talked through what some of her life goals were. So she absolutely has the desire to purchase a property in the future, and ideally it's going to be a property that's going to make her money. Of course, she also wants to have a good amount of an emergency fund in there, and she also had the desire to have funds coming out of here once she's in retirement age. We looked at the projected numbers to make sure these were numbers that were sufficient for her. So if she put this $200, is this okay? Or would she want more of a retirement fund? Or would she want more of a down payment fund? And if so, then what time exactly? Again, an index universal life policy is very flexible, so it can be built out whichever way you want it. And based on the way that we built it out for her and based on her needs, here's what these numbers look like for her. I already mentioned that by the time that she is 65, she will be getting a check from this insurance company for $25,000 every single year. Not all insurance companies include this ability to have a guaranteed income for life. This particular insurance company that we applied with does. The way that I build this policy out for her, she's going to be putting in $48,000 over the next 20 years. What she's going to get in return is that once she is 41, so in her early 40s, she will have an emergency fund in there available to take out of $88,000. So she will be able to take out double the amount that she already put in. She will have her actual life insurance in addition to that. That will be paid out in the event that she dies. I mean, wild. By the time that she's 30, she could take out $28,000 out of this policy in order to put for a down payment. Her goal was a home down payment, but it doesn't have to be used for that specifically. It could be used for anything. By the time she's 65, she will be getting a check of $25,000 every single year. So if she does not take money out of this policy at all at any point, once she's 65, after she's taken out money for just 2 years, the policy has already paid for itself. And any time before this, if she passes away, then her family's going to get that payout of the actual insurance policy. A lot of times I talk to people that are older, whether they're in their 30s, their 40s, and their 50s, and they have a lot more responsibilities than this 22-year-old. They have a lot more on the line to lose if they were to die. They have a lot more responsibilities where if there's an emergency, they don't have any funds in place. So if in your 30s or your 40s, my question to you is, what is it that's stopping you from giving up a little bit today so you can have a future that is more comfortable for you? If you're in your 30s or your 40s, and honestly, even your 50s, and you don't have funds saved for an emergency, you don't have funds saved for a house, you don't know how your family's going to bury you if you were to not wake up tomorrow, and you have decided that you are done making the wrong decision and you want to start preparing for your future, you want to start saving for later, you want to have a stack of money that is available tax-free for you to access if you need it, then go ahead and tap the link in the comments or the description box to book a call so we can talk to see if this is something that you qualify for. Let me know in the comments if you think that this is worth it. You know, would you give up $48,000 if it meant that you had access to $81,000 of an emergency fund? Is that type of delayed gratification worth it to you? Let me know in the comments what you think.